Hi, I'm Daniel Wong from the Alternative Board, and today we're lucky enough to have Melissa from Exceler8 to talk to us a bit about HR and recruitment. We're here today with a TAB member who is the owner of Exceler8. Melissa, how did Exceler8 come about?
It's actually my father's business.
Oh.
So, talking about family-owned businesses, he was an accountant and a business advisor, and he had a business advisory firm called Exceler8, and he was based in Rockhampton. I swore I would never have my own business, but I found some amazing tools to help business owners with their people, and I had to get on board. So I was having a chat with my dad. I said, "Dad, what should I do? What should I call it?" And he said, "Why doesn't Exceler8 offer HR?" And that's how it started. So I have a real affinity, or I just have such passion for small businesses because I see my father, what he went through. And my proudest moment as a HR professional was when my dad rang me and said, "Lissy, what do I do with Mary?" And that's when I knew my accountant, my father, has just asked me for advice.
Yeah.
I was pretty proud.
That's awesome. So you're carrying his legacy in multiple ways.
I like to think so, but I am not an accountant. Let me highlight that one. But I work with great accountants.
HR is a very broad topic. How would you describe it to our viewers?
Really, when we look at HR, it's just about people in your business. So that could be a subcontractor, could be an employee, but it could also be a business partner, for example. One of the most exciting parts when it comes to HR is working with family businesses because they bring all sorts of exciting challenges from a HR perspective.
So what sort of challenges do your customers bring to you?
It'll generally be a pain point, so a headache. That's why I like to regard myself as people paracetamol. So some of the typical issues is I want to put on a general manager because I want to get out of this business. I don't want to spend 70 hours like I have for the last 5 years. Another really typical one will be I had a fair work claim. So how do I make sure that never happens again? So it's almost like an insurance when you look at people in your business, when trying to get a really sustainable HR framework in your business.
So what does a sustainable HR framework look like?
I generally use a 5-step process. So it's really the first one's about measurement and planning. So we all know that plans are really important, but when it comes to your people, plans are essential. Then really looking at your compliance. So those 2 steps are your HR processes and systems. So people might regard that as policies and procedures, but then how to actually manage that, because you can have an economy of paper warfare when it comes to HR policies and procedures. So making sure that they're applicable to your business. Yeah. And then you get to the really exciting part, which is about maximising sustainability, which is about performance management, which that's a whole nother workshop, and workplace improvement. And getting your people involved in that is really important to make that a successful framework as well.
So when I hear, performance management, it often has a negative connotation to it. My understanding is it doesn't need to be. What are your thoughts on what does performance management mean to you?
Exactly what the words say. You're managing performance in your business. So what does performance look like in your business? It can be good, bad, ugly, or indifferent. So really when we look at performance management, it's about the entire employment life cycle. So when someone enters your business, it's understanding what do we actually need them to be doing, what are our expectations, right through to the exit. That could be positive or negative exit. But it's actually about making sure that you understand and measure because, and I love the old adage, you can't manage what you don't measure. Yeah. So, and unless you measure it, which is what performance measurement and management is about. So it's not that complicated. Again, great in theory, but it's the application of it because it does actually require difficult conversations sometimes.
And sometimes those difficult conversations can lead to really great outcomes. Even if somebody does end up moving on to a different job, it can be in their best interest, what they really wanted. When you're talking about measuring, how is an employer supposed to know what even is worth measuring?
It's really important when it comes to strategy in businesses that you actually have an alignment between what people are doing in a business and what the business needs them to do. And that's where I find generally a lot of businesses struggle, is to have that alignment, because business owners will never think like employees and employees will never think like business owners. That's not a bad thing, but we need to make sure that you're actually talking on the same page.
Yeah. And so how do they do that?
So I measure a lot, so back to that performance management or measurement. It's actually ensuring how satisfied are business owners with their strategy and how satisfied are they with the way that their people deliver on that strategy. And then conversely, how satisfied are the people in your business, whoever that may be, how satisfied are they in delivering on that strategy? What's their environment like? And one of the most interesting things when it comes to people is everything's based on perspectives, but perspectives are someone's reality. So unless you measure that perspective, you will not have an idea of how you're actually going to deliver on that strategy and make a profitable and high growth business.
So if we go, to the beginning of an employee's path and through the recruitment, how does an employer make sure they get the right people in the first place?
There's an old adage around position descriptions. So when I talk to some clients, a position description, I know what they need to do. They know what they need to do. Why do we need to have to go through a whole process of analysing the job? Because you need to go through the process of analysing the job. Unless people really understand what they're supposed to be doing, not just reading your mind or hearing what they think they're supposed to hear, because sometimes communication is difficult. No, I take that back. All the time communication is difficult. If you don't have something that has analysed the job really well, that goes to things such as competencies, experience, even looking at what type of background, it could be competitors that they've worked for that are ideal when you are recruiting someone. If you don't have that defined right from the start, if you engage someone to help you with recruitment, or if you aren't doing the recruitment yourself as a business owner, you can sometimes get a mismatch. And that's when you start to find 3, 6, 12 months down the track of a new employee go, this isn't what I signed up for. But ironically, the employee's probably saying the same thing. This isn't what was promised to me in the recruitment process as well. So in summary, it's really that analysis of a job is so vitally important so that they know what they're supposed to be doing and you know what they're supposed to be doing. And guess what? You can manage their performance.
Are there tools available that help employers do this?
Absolutely. So when you look at, you could Google this stuff, and it's all the templates are there and the documents. What takes skill is how to actually drill down the information. And I don't know about you, Daniel, but I find that having someone external to your business to be able to challenge the status quo, to question, does that sit with a role? Because most of the time when you look at just recruiting one role, it's not about one role. It's about all of them that are interdependent. So if you do have a vacancy, my recommendation is to look at the team or even the entire business to say, are we maximising what we should be doing and who should be doing what? And should we be outsourcing it? To be honest, don't let an employee be your first port of call. Look at all different options. I'm a big fan of staying in your lane, so try not to be too much to too many people. Yeah. So really making sure that the role is valuable and needed in your business. So reassessing is really important as well, especially if you have a vacancy. You don't have to get rid of anyone then.
So 2021 is going to be an interesting year. Australia, the rest of the world, we're all in different areas of the pandemic. Do you think recruitment and HR is changing?
Absolutely. We already know, because we're based in Brisbane, 2021 started with a bang, a 3-day lockdown. And that had big impacts for some of my clients, especially in the hospitality and retail sector. But it's even a real challenge, the working from home conundrum. So really, when you're looking at recruitment, which is what you asked, it's really about attracting top talent. So that definition of what top talent looks like for your business is so vitally important. But knowing the type of environment that top talent wants to work in, working from home is one of them. They will be demanding some of that. So the complexities around the frameworks of just managing someone remotely will become prolific. Doesn't have to be difficult, but you do need to understand the risks. But you also need to understand, how do I maximise the productivity? And my tip for that is making sure you've got really good systems. There's two elements. There's really the operational systems. How do I measure performance? What do you know? It's come up again. What are the KPIs? You need to move to outcome-based management, people management, and that actually comes to leadership. And that brings us to a whole nother area around people's capability of managing someone remotely. And traditionally, Australia is not the best and hasn't been the best at managing via outcomes. They generally manage via site. So if someone's at the desk, the workstation, or in their car, that means they're working. And we all know that that's not the case.
I've heard of many times where someone's given 6 hours and 8 hours to do the amount of work, and they'll do the exact same amount of work in that time.
Absolutely. So it's really about what's going to work best for your business. So I'm not an advocate of you just need to give everyone working from home, because that's not a reality. What we do need to consider is what is best for the business. So it goes back to that strategy and action alignment. What do we need to be achieving? How do we need to achieve it? And what do our people do to contribute to achieving that? And communicate that.
Yeah. So you've brought someone on. I've met with business owners, both from all different kinds, where they say we've brought someone on and our onboarding policy is that we have our procedures documented.
There you go. There's the handbook. Please read it.
There's a handbook, and they're your KPIs.
Yep, you're 100% productive now, right? Yes. Heard that many, many times.
So what's the right answer?
The right answer is what's best for your business. So a lot of people will talk about, when it comes to HR, as best practice. Yeah. I challenge that to say what is best for your practice. So it's really about understanding what and defining. So it even goes back to that job analysis that I spoke about before. It's really looking at and ensuring that you understand what does someone need in order to be productive. Now, some businesses that could look like 3 months. Other businesses, especially for highly complicated roles, that could be 12. So having a plan and really getting an understanding of where will someone be with predetermined experience and capabilities and competencies, where realistic will they be? And I can guarantee just one person, being the business owner, won't be the person to be able to define that. So your onboarding program really needs to be involved with the rest of the team, if there is a team involved, and having a plan. So it's going to be very different for each business. What you're talking about there when it comes to policies and procedures, that's the first, second, third, fourth day. That's the first week. Yeah. That's called orientation. Yeah. You should actually be doing that every 12 months, by the way. But the onboarding is really about how do I get this person on board to be 100% productive?
Absolutely. One thing that we share in common is we're both big advocates of disc profiling. Disc profiling I see as something that you can learn fairly quickly, but take a lifetime to really develop the skills and embrace. Absolutely. From your point of view and your experiences, what has disc profiling done for businesses and companies?
So it's interesting, I've dealt with a lot of different profiles, and yes, DISC is fantastic, but all of them are valid and all of them are based on the same thing. It does challenge those skeptics out there that just think it's a horoscope. They just think, oh, I've answered a few questions and they've choose your own adventure and it's applicable to everyone. And you and I both know when we get that debrief, it's absolutely 100% not. It's really about how people interact with other people. And really, especially for those skeptics, I walk into that profiling to explain to them, if the only thing you take away from this process is understanding why someone frustrates you so much and you have an understanding around that, you're 50% there. Yeah. So it's really about setting up communication and conversations and not putting someone into a threat response, because we all know if someone's feeling threatened, they're completely ineffective. Yeah. So when we go back to any sort of behavioural profiling, and a huge fan of DISC because it's just so simple, you don't need to be a psychologist to interpret it. Yeah. It's really using some of those tips and tricks that they give you to make sure you're setting things up to be successful and to be effective, because we actually don't like wasting our words or our time. So if we can do that in less words or more effective words, that's what behavioural profiling gives us. It also helps us to understand what type of profile could suit different roles. Now, I'm not saying to use profiling for recruitment as a selection or an elimination process. That's absolutely flawed, because if you're only using that, you're missing all of the other things when it comes to a job analysis that you don't have. But it gives you a really great understanding of what this person could be like from a learning perspective and, what do you know, effective onboarding. But if your entire team are across or understand and use that same language, it makes that introduction into the team that much smoother. And also that performance management process can actually be simpler.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
And finding out someone's motivators, I find, can be quite valuable as well, because a lot of the time people think they're motivated by money. And sure, if you give them a pay rise, they may be happy, you know, for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, but then the same cycles will come back. So knowing what's really important to them and what sort of mutual relationship that can have can be really...
I also really like the fact that we can talk about stresses as well. So it's what's going to put them into a stress situation, and you may look at that and go, that is our business the entire day. There is nothing we can do about that. Yeah. And it's not about eliminating someone because it is a stressor for them. It's about having a really transparent conversation with that person to say, look, I see that this is a real stress for you. Change is a constant. How have you handled that? And that's an effective behavioural-based interview question. Tell us how you've coped with change. And that's a fantastic thing to understand in someone, especially if it's a constant in your business.
So people make a business. HR is about people. When should a business owner engage in someone like yourself?
Ironically, I've just started working with someone who has just put on their first employee. Yeah. So all I did was made them aware of the award and gave them 10 policies. What that has given him is confidence. So if you don't feel confident, comfortable and reassured you know everything, especially around a HR framework from the Fair Work perspective, it's really important to have that understanding from the offset. Then as your team grow, having someone to check in or just to do a pulse around your business to make sure that, one, it's compliant, but two, how is everyone actually tracking, including the business owner, because they're a person too, believe it or not.
Don't tell the employees.
Yeah.
Look, Melissa, I want to thank you for your time today. Your insight has been amazing. Often when I think of HR as like everyone else, we think of compliance, right? And we know there's so much more, but sometimes it can be hard to sort of pull those strings and uncover what's there. So I want to say a big thank you. How can people reach out to you?
Absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn. I love that platform. It's really great to connect with people, so they can just look up Melissa Langton or Exceler8. But I've also got phone, email, which is all accessible on my website. So exceler8.com.au.
Thank you, Melissa.
My pleasure.
My name's Daniel Wong from the Alternative Board, and I will see you again with future videos.